you go.
The disappointment. I need
Yeah,
more
yeah.
property.
Yeah. So after you bought those three and you got your wife's buy-in, then
Yeah.
and I know you have, we can talk about a lot of things, but
Mhm.
I know you guys, or you guys, when I say you guys,
Sure.
I know you have partners in doing syndication.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Did you start going, hey, we're really learning about syndication? Was it reading some books? Was it, going to, some of the folks' conferences they have around the country, and whether it's Jake or Gino or Michael Bonk or what, and all of those guys, right? They have some of that. So how did you kind of get into that, and how did you think, what, hey, maybe I want to try doing the syndication thing?
For sure. Yeah. And I guess just to
Tell us about that journey.
give everyone an idea. So I'm invested passively in 2 apartment deals. We're under contract for one in Louisville. I don't know if you know about that one, but we're under contract for one in Louisville. We were under contract for another one in Shelbyville. I've been in and out of self-storage. And so that's been over the course of a year. So it's been a busy time for sure. And so, and then we bought a vacation rental, and it's been nice that it's been kind of paying for itself since we acquired that. So, but that puts us, at the beach. My parents are retired and live down there, so we now have a place to stay when we want to go visit. So, a lot has definitely happened over the year. But as far as to answer your question on syndication, and I guess how that all got started, there's definitely so I've been coming to this for a year. I was actually talking to someone else today. I was like, yeah, I've been coming here for literally a year. Maybe like 13 months, but it's like really close to a year. Got connected with REI Nashville. I think there's T and RIA as well, but I haven't been floating around that network as nearly as much. But I went to the Michael Blanc's conference, which I think Michael Blanc has probably one of the best multifamily deal analyzers out there in terms of just easy to comprehend. We've kind of outgrown it a little bit, but he had a conference last year for his group, and so they offer, finding out that they offer mentorships, getting connected with their people, finding who works for us, who won't work for us, who's good connections, who's not, was great. And then after that, it's just been really aggressive networking. So local and within the markets. But I think, step one for any real estate investor is, let me pick my market first, and then form a team around my market. And so, thankfully we're in an amazing market. And so, but I was just like, all right, I need primary and secondary market. So I was like, Louisville to Huntsville, and then East Tennessee. That's kind of my market. So obviously Nashville and Clarksville is in that Louisville to Huntsville range, because I wanted to add value to a team by being local, by being boots on the ground. I was like, well, if anything in a 4-hour radius except west puts me back home having dinner with Michelle. So that's been kind of the guidelines for us there as far as the markets go. But I feel bad for people in like Seattle, or New York. I'm just like, yeah, we're relying on you. And it's like, it sucks for you, man. Like, it's nice, like, good thing I'm here. But no, it's been really interesting how syndication in general, if I can just make it in its simplest form, like, you can earn equity in a real estate just by connecting people. Like that blows my mind that exists. And so that's kind of what really attracted it to me. But I mean, as far as the roles that you can play in that one, if I could break it down to 3 simple roles, like there's the acquisitions, which is you're finding the deals, you're hunting the deals down, you're building network with brokers, you're doing direct to seller. You're funding the deals, where you're connecting investors to deal pipeline enough to where they're still listening to you and intrigued in what you have to say. You have to be very educative, kind of have some platform to where you're giving out value add information. And then there's the asset managers, right? That's the part that's hard to build experience in unless you've done it already. So you kind of have to start somewhere in a deal finder or a deal funder, and then have, shadow someone that's doing asset management, and just kind of build up that skill set as you go. But that's you're managing the manager, you're executing the value add business plan. You are a Gantt chart master, knowing like what timeline is dependent upon this other thing, or what independent task can you do, what other dependent task can you do or cannot do, that type of thing. And so I had to choose a role, coming into this one. And so my daily audience was VPs and directors. I had some connections locally because I'd been in Rutherford County for so long. I was like, well, let me start out deal funder, right? So I kind of played the investor relations role, and I was like, well, let me just kind of just tell everyone what I'm doing, the deals that I'm looking at, and see who's interested in something like a 5-year hold where we give you 100% return on your investment. And it's not hard. It's honestly not hard to drum up interest in something like that, because it's better than what most people are experience by just getting their 401k and looking at the returns that way. But I think it's you kind of need to make sure that you're aligned with investors, right? Don't give me your last 50,000. If you if you have an opinion on paint colors and flooring and tile and all that stuff, it's probably not for you.
Yeah.
I really just want you to prop your feet up and enjoy the checks in the mail. Like that's kind of it. And there's some people that are just like, I want to be involved, and it's like, we'll do JV one day. We'll joint venture a smaller deal, something like that. But it's pretty interesting. The part that was scary in that, and taking that leap, the first 3 to 6 months, your first 90 days or whatever, was that I went to a meetup, and there was a gentleman that spoke, and he was, wholesaler, transitioned to developer, and he was just kind of building out all these bridges of real estate industries. And I was like, oh, like, I talked to him a little bit afterwards, and he made a comment that if you don't have an acquisitions pipeline, you have no real estate business. And I was just like, there's some truth to that. And so it really made me question of like, did I focus on the wrong thing? Because electrical engineer, data analyst, like underwriting, being in a spreadsheet, not a long putt for me,
Right.
but it's just like, in terms of how I wanted to grow as a human being, be in front of people, like that gets me out of bed every day. Like that gets me motivated. My joke is, if I wanted to stay behind a desk looking at spreadsheets all day, I wouldn't have left my job.
Right. Yeah.
So
So how do you, so let's just kind of go to, well, I know we can continue along the syndication here thing for a minute, but question is, so as you gained experience over the last year, then is there certain sizes of deals where you go, okay, you know what, this would be a joint venture, or maybe I have a couple of people I can think of that would want to, come in on this deal. But at what size you go, okay, I need to syndicate this thing.
for
You
sure.
have a certain kind of limit of, okay, this is 4 million, so we're gonna need to syndicate this, or what have you, come up with and gathered in the last year?
I had an easy answer up until like 3 months ago, but that was anyway.
Yeah.
I'll keep it to the easy answer here, but it's really based off purchase price for me. So if syndication fees are 10, 15, $20,000, based on the purchase price, around 3 million is kind of like an easy, all right, this is syndicatable, right, based on purchase price, and it still I can enjoy the fees for people running the deal. It can make sense for the attorney fees, that type of thing, and people can still get good returns on their money. So 3 million and up is obviously syndicatable. The 2 to 3 million is a case-by-case basis, depending on the types of returns and how heavy of a lift and how good of a returns and the market outlook and stuff like that. Anything under 2 million is definitely like, how can I JV this? I don't want to complicate things, but I'm going to. So there's some, I mentioned self-storage, but there's some scenarios where you can take like a $500,000 storage facility. You can syndicate that by raising the entire purchase price. Like that kind of makes sense, to syndicate that and not take a loan. And then you do your value add business plan by raising the entire purchase price plus CapEx. And then in a year or 2 or 3, you refinance. That would be the first time, but like the fundamentals have to be really solid, and it has to be such like a dilapidated property with someone that hasn't raised rents in 30 years or something like that. There's a lot that has to line up for something like that. But in multi, I'm not going to find that in multifamily, but in multifamily, $3 million purchase price is a rough estimate on what's syndicatable.
Yeah. When you start getting into the syndication, did you go, okay, let's see, what do I need? How do I set this up? What's an accredited investor? What's the, how did you go about educating yourself on all those different pieces to make sure you didn't get thrown into real estate jail for doing something?
For sure. Yeah.
Somebody might not
It's
the
so,
government may not want you.
it's it's so interesting. Because I mean there's all these books out there. I'll just throw out Joe Fairless's book on the best ever book on syndication. And that is by far the best blueprint for just saying, hey, these are the team members you need. This is how you get started, blah, blah, steps 1 to 10. And then boom, all you got to do after that is just put in the reps, and networking, build the teams, find partners. There's a couple other books on, raising private capital, this, that, and the other, but then there's books on how to do that legally. And those are books written.
That's key.
Those are
Legal.
books written by lawyers, right? Those books on raising capital, those
Right.
are like, yeah, if you want a debt partner, and here's how you make a promissory note.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, if you want to file a private exemption from an SEC, 506B methodology, they don't talk about that. So there's 2 books that I read that were actually written by SEC attorneys, and they were like, here's what you want to do. Here's a couple instances where people have really gone in the gray area and it's bit them in the butt. Do not do this, do not do this, do not do this. And so it really gave me a lot, like they gave me so many things, like things not to do, where I kind of knew like the right things to do. I mean, everyone kind of says, these are the right things to do,
Right.
generally speaking, but don't do this one very specific thing that this individual did. And, stay the hell off social media when you're capital raising for, 506B type raise, that type of thing. And those books were so dry, Brian. Oh my God, they were written by attorneys, but you gotta put that stuff in. So getting educated is, and it's easy to get stuck in like the education phase, like analysis paralysis. Hey, I'm going to learn this next thing before I get started, or this other thing. And so, but I think it's important that if you're comfortable knowing 70% and then putting the next step forward, you need to have the team member in place to fill in the gaps for you, right? You can't just say, hey, I'm going to go do this highly regulated thing and hope I'm doing it right, without advisement. That doesn't really work really well. So, I mean, throughout this process, I think you did a great job of connecting us with people to help fill in those gaps, whether it's, commercial real estate or lenders, or even like people to help self-directed IRA custodians, people to help with 1031s, life insurance, like whole life insurance was pretty interesting. The idea of like interest rate arbitrage and how you can leverage your net worth to invest more and accelerate your net worth, stuff like that. And then, SEC attorneys, there really isn't a shortage of them, but there's the ones that will return your call. There is a shortage of those. So the ones that are just so busy, it's hard to, so finding the right ones that are kind of in high growth mode, but still excelling, willing to take strangers' phone calls is hard to find. So
for those people